Hey listeners, welcome to English Made Simple, where we turn tricky language concepts into your superpower. So imagine you are sitting in a really crucial, high-stakes job interview.
Oh, high pressure.
Right, exactly. You know your industry inside and out, and the interviewer asks a relatively straightforward question, and suddenly, well, your brain is just dial-up internet static.
We've all been there.
Yeah. You stumble, you ramble, and you leave feeling like you completely misrepresented yourself. So today, we aren't just talking about how to survive those spotlight moments. We are looking at the actual, biological and linguistic mechanics of speaking fluently on the fly on literally any topic in the world.
Right.
We are going to explore how to organize your thoughts instantly, master vocal variety, and pace your delivery so you never freeze up again.
It is a universally terrifying scenario. The spotlight swings to you, the silence stretches, and panic sets in. And I want to address you, the listener, directly for a second about that exact moment of panic.
Please do.
Because when your mind goes blank like that, the core problem is almost never a lack of knowledge or, a flawed vocabulary.
Wait, really?
Yeah, what you are actually experiencing is a biological response. It's an amygdala hijack.
Okay, wow.
Your brain perceives the social pressure as a literal threat, which temporarily shuts down your prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain responsible for logical planning. So the stumbling and disorganized rambling that follows is just a lack of on-the-spot mental planning.
I mean, I always assumed that if someone stumbled while speaking, they just didn't know the material well enough, or maybe their English vocabulary was too small to articulate the thought.
That's a super common misconception.
But you are saying it is strictly an organizational issue caused by cognitive overload.
Precisely. We have to look at the biggest hurdle first, which is figuring out what to say, long before we even begin to worry about how we sound.
Makes
Right, because there is a fundamental cognitive difference between writing and speaking. Writing gives you the luxury of an external hard drive, like the page. You can write a terrible first draft, offload your messy thoughts, and visually reorganize them.
Right, you can just edit it.
Exactly. But speaking is live. Your working memory can only hold a few pieces of information at a time. So to survive live speaking, you need a mental blueprint to bypass that panic response.
Okay.
And the most effective blueprint is what we call the three-question approach.
Okay, I am familiar with frameworks, but usually they require sitting down with a whiteboard. How does a mental blueprint actually work when someone is staring at you, waiting for an answer?
Well, it works because it forces your brain into a predictable, highly structured sequence.
Okay.
Whenever you're handed a topic, you don't try to formulate a complete essay. You simply answer three specific questions silently in your head in this exact order. What does the topic mean? Why is it important? And what are some examples?
Why? Examples.
Right. That sequence gives your brain stepping stones so you don't drown in the open water of the topic.
What it means, why it's important, and examples. Let's put this into practice. Let's take a really broad topic that could easily lead to a 5-minute rambling answer.
Okay, that's good.
Let's use the topic of listening. Walk me through the blueprint.
Sure. So if someone asks you to speak about listening, you instantly go to question 1. What does it mean? In its simplest form, listening essentially means interpreting what another person is saying.
Right.
It is not just hearing, it is interpretation.
So we have our baseline definition. The listener knows exactly what page we are on.
Exactly. Then you move to question 2. Why is it important? Well, it is vital for effective communication. Without it, you cannot have a smooth conversation.
Definitely.
And more importantly, it makes the other person feel valued, which is absolutely critical in environments like customer service, a business negotiation, or a job interview.
So you've immediately established the stakes. You have given the listener a reason to care about the definition you just provided.
You got it. And finally, question 3. What are some examples? An example of good listening is when someone is actively interpreting what you are saying and proving it through their responses, so they are an active listener.
Right.
A bad example. Well, we all have that one friend who only ever wants to talk and never wants to listen.
Oh, absolutely.
They're a bad listener. Despite having 2 ears and 1 mouth, they strongly prefer the mouth.
That is painfully relatable. But, I have to push back on the mechanics of this. Answering 3 distinct questions in your head while you are simultaneously trying to vocalize an answer sounds a bit like trying to build an airplane while you are already flying it.
It does sound like that, yeah.
I mean, how does that not cause more cognitive overload?
That is a very fair assumption, but it misinterprets how our brains actually retrieve information. You aren't writing out full sentences for each question simultaneously.
Oh, okay.
You are just dropping sequential mental breadcrumbs. When you focus solely on defining the word, your brain doesn't have to worry about the example yet.
Ah, I see.
The alternative, just opening your mouth and hoping the words form a coherent thought that forces your brain to retrieve vocabulary, monitor audience reactions, and build narrative structure all at the same time.
Right.
And that is what causes you to ramble.
Ah, I see the distinction. So it is less like building an airplane mid-flight and more like opening a simple mental filing cabinet.
Yes, exactly.
Drawer 1, the definition. Drawer 2, the importance. Drawer 3, the real-world example.
Perfect analogy.
It keeps you on a track so you don't start rambling about your friend who talks too much before you have even explained why active listening is valuable in a business setting.
Exactly. Without that structure, you give out disorganized information, and the listener's brain has to work incredibly hard to piece it together.
Yeah.
With it, you sound highly articulate and composed no matter what the topic is.
So the 3-question blueprint organizes the script, but I've definitely sat through presentations where the speaker's thoughts were perfectly organized, but they still managed to put me right to sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the words were right, but the delivery was entirely dead. How do we fix that disconnect?
Well, this is where we cross from what you were saying into how you are saying it. You were describing the dreaded robot voice.
Robot voice, yeah.
Right. A perfectly structured answer spoken in a flat, monotone voice triggers something in the human brain called sensory habituation.
Sensory habituation.
Yeah. Essentially, if a sound remains constant in pitch and volume, our brains physically stop registering it as important to save energy. We just tune it out.
Wow, that's wild.
It is. And the antidote to sensory habituation and the robot voice is mastering intonation.
I mean, I always assumed sounding human just meant adding more emotion, but intonation sounds a lot more mechanical than that. How does it actually work?
Intonation is the natural rise and fall of the human voice and is the music of your speech. And the absolute secret to sounding human and keeping the listener's brain engaged is strategic stress.
Strategic stress.
Yes. In any given sentence, there are key words and there are weak words. The key words carry the absolute most meaning, so the nouns, the main verbs, the adjectives.
Right.
The weak words are the grammatical glue. Words like to, is, the, or filler sounds. To intonate effectively, you must place your vocal stress heavily on the key words and gracefully glide over the weak words.
Oh, I love that. To make this visual for the listener, this sounds exactly like using a bright yellow highlighter on a textbook page.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, like when you are studying, you don't highlight the word the or the word is. You highlight the core concept so it stands out immediately to your eye. In speech, your voice is doing the highlighting for the listener's ear, doing the cognitive sorting for them.
That is the exact mechanism. Your voice highlights what the listener needs to pay attention to.
Right.
You do this by making the key words slightly louder, slightly longer, and often with a slight change in pitch. If you stress every single word equally, you sound robotic. If you stress none of them, you sound disengaged.
But let me clarify the gliding over part. When you say glide over the weak words, do you mean we should just mumble them?
Oh, definitely not.
Because when people try to sound fluid, they often just swallow half of their sentence and it becomes totally incomprehensible.
That is a crucial distinction. Do not just eat your words or mumble them entirely. You still need to clearly pronounce the small words. You just don't punch them with emphasis.
Okay.
They are spoken slightly softer and slightly faster, but they must remain perfectly clear. Clarity is always the baseline.
Got it. So if stressing words is like using a highlighter, how do we handle the ends of our sentences? Because how you finish a thought dictates how the listener responds to it.
It absolutely does. If stressing words is the highlighter, the pitch at the very end of your sentence is your vocal punctuation mark.
I like that, vocal punctuation.
Exactly. And there's a very specific pitch playbook you need to follow based on how the human brain processes audio cues. There are concrete rules for where your voice should go, up or down, at the exact end of a thought.
I really want to get into the specific rules of this pitch playbook because this sounds like the secret to sounding authoritative. But before we get to the rules, if you've been enjoying listening to this, consider subscribing.
Good call.
All right, let's dive back in. What are the biological rules for pitching our voice up or down?
The rules are tied to how our brains interpret tension and release. Let's start with dropping the pitch. There are two main scenarios where your voice should naturally step down at the end.
Okay.
The first is at the end of standard statements. For example, if you say, "My name is Nitu," your pitch drops on the name Nitu to signal that the thought is complete.
Right.
You wouldn't say, "My name is Nitu," with a rising pitch because it creates a cognitive open loop.
Oh, I hear it.
The listener's brain is left hanging, expecting more information.
Right. A rising pitch on a statement sounds like you are about to add a but to the end of it. It sounds unresolved.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A dropping pitch signals closure, allowing the listener's brain to rest and process the information. The second scenario where you drop your pitch is at the end of open-ended questions.
Open-ended questions.
Yes, these are questions that ask for a full explanation and usually start with who, what, where, why, or how. For example, how far do you think you'll go? Notice how the pitch physically steps down on the word go.
How far do you think you'll go? A downward pitch. It feels grounded and authoritative rather than pleading.
It establishes presence. Now, the opposite is true for raising the pitch. You raise your pitch at the end of closed-ended questions.
Okay.
These are questions that just need a simple binary yes or no answer, like, do you like speaking in English? Or, do you like coffee?
Let me test the psychology of this. I want to intentionally break this rule to see how the brain reacts.
Let's do it.
I'm going to ask you that closed-ended question about coffee, but I am going to use the dropping pitch that we just said belongs on statements. Ready?
I am ready. Let's hear the disconnect.
Do you like coffee? Wow, that felt incredibly aggressive.
It didn't sound like a question at all.
Not at all.
It sounded like an accusation or a command. Because the words asked a question, but the dropping pitch signaled a definitive, closed statement. It creates cognitive dissonance for the listener.
It sounded like I was forcing you to drink the coffee. It completely reinforces why these rules matter. We're so subtly tuned to these pitch changes.
We really are.
So what happens when we are giving someone a list of options? Like, do you want option A, B, or C?
That is the third rule of the pitch playbook, and it functions a lot like a traffic light for the brain.
Traffic light.
Yes. When you are giving a list or a choice, you raise your pitch on the early items, and you drop it heavily on the final item. Raising the pitch is the green light. It signals keep listening, more is coming.
Oh.
Dropping it is the red light. It signals stop, no more options.
So if I'm offering beverages, do you like tea with the pitch going up, coffee with the pitch going up, or milkshake with the pitch going down?
Spot on. You create a series of cognitive open loops with tea and coffee, holding the listener's attention in suspense, and then you firmly close the loop on the word milkshake.
Right.
If you raised your pitch on milkshake, the person's brain would just sit there waiting for a fourth option that is never coming.
This is fascinating. We are essentially giving the listener's brain audio cues on exactly when to listen, when to wait, and when it is their turn to respond.
Exactly.
So the pitch playbook covers the mechanical punctuation, but I have to imagine that is not the whole picture. How do emotion and pacing play into this?
Well, pitch rules give you clarity, but your tone and your speed determine how the listener actually feels about what you're saying.
Okay.
Let's look at matching tone first. Your tone is the empathy layer of communication. What happens when your tone and your pitch conflict? It creates intense social awkwardness.
Give me an example of what that mismatch sounds like in the real world.
Let's use an extreme one. If someone comes up to you looking devastated and says, "I lost my book," and you reply with a huge smile and a cheery, upbeat, "Oh, that's bad news." Yikes. Yeah, you have fundamentally failed to match tone. The words express sympathy, but the upbeat tone expresses joy.
Yeah, you would sound entirely unhinged.
Absolutely.
Your words are saying bad news, but the listener's brain is receiving the message that you are thrilled their book is gone?
Exactly, because humans will always trust the tone over the actual word.
Always.
A more common example happens when people get nervous speaking in public. Their anxiety causes them to subconsciously adopt a highly defensive or overly apologetic tone, even when they are delivering good news or presenting neutral data.
Oh, I've heard that.
You have to vary your tone intentionally based on the context. You can be funny, you can be highly professional, or you can drop into a serious, weighty tone. But it must match the reality of the topic.
You have to meet the listener where they are emotionally, or your message gets lost in the dissonance.
Precisely.
Okay, so we have the mental blueprint, the highlighter strategic stress, the pitch playbook, and empathetic tone. There is one more huge trap I want to unpack, and that is speed.
Oh, speed, yes.
Right. Because I see this constantly, especially in professional settings or with language learners trying to sound advanced. They equate speed with competence. They zoom through their sentences.
It is arguably the most common trap. People believe that speaking incredibly fast equals fluency.
Right.
But when I hear someone rushing through their speech, dropping consonants and breathing heavily, I always want to stop them and ask, are you going to miss a train in the next 5 minutes?
That is the perfect reality check. Are you actually running for a train right now?
Because if you aren't sprinting to catch a train, there is absolutely no reason to speak that fast.
No reason at all.
Speaking too quickly destroys your intonation, ruins your pitch rules, and most importantly, it robs the listener's brain of the time it needs to process your ideas.
So what is the actual speed limit here? How fast should we be talking to maximize comprehension without sounding sluggish?
Linguistic studies consistently point to an ideal rate of speech between 120 and 150 words per minute.
120 to 150 words per minute. Without a point of reference, I think a lot of people might assume that is incredibly slow.
They often do.
To give the listener a practical way to conceptualize this, right now I am speaking to you at about 130 words per minute. It feels relaxed, it feels grounded. You have plenty of time to process exactly what I'm saying.
It is a highly comfortable pace for the human ear.
But if I suddenly start speaking to you at 180 words per minute, packing in as many words as I possibly can because I feel like silence is dangerous and I just want to get through the material, well, suddenly you feel this underlying anxiety like I'm rushing you out the door. It completely changes the dynamic, right?
It entirely changes the dynamic. When you spoke at 180 words per minute, my brain felt pressured.
Wow. Yeah.
Now, here is where it gets truly fascinating. Very often, when we listen to highly proficient native English speakers or brilliant public speakers, they sound like they are speaking incredibly fast.
They really do.
But if you actually sit down and measure their output, they're usually hovering right around 140 words per minute.
Wait, really? So our perception of their speed is just an illusion?
It is a complete auditory illusion.
That's wild.
Their fluency, their perfect mastery of intonation, and their smooth transitions from one word to the next, which is something linguists call connected speech, that creates the illusion of speed.
Ah, connected speech.
Because their speech flows like water without jarring hesitations, our brains process it as fast and fluid. But physically, mechanically, they are well within that 120 to 150 words per minute speed limit.
That completely reframes the goal. They aren't talking faster, they're just driving smoother.
Exactly.
It's like being a passenger in a luxury car. The suspension is so good and the engine is so quiet that you don't feel the bumps. It feels like you're flying down the highway, but you look at the speedometer and you are actually doing the speed limit.
That is a wonderful analogy. When you eliminate the verbal bumps, you don't need velocity to impress the listener. You just need clarity.
Okay, we have covered some incredibly deep linguistic and psychological ground today. Can you give us the ultimate synthesis of everything we've explored?
Gladly. If you want to speak fluently and confidently on any topic, you need to align your mechanics. First, bypass the panic response and organize your working memory with the what, why, and examples blueprint.
Right.
Second, cure the monotone robot voice and prevent sensory habituation by using strategic stress to highlight your key words.
Use a highlighter.
Yes. Third, follow the pitch playbook. Drop your pitch for statements and open questions to signal closure, raise it for yes or no questions to create an open loop, and use the traffic light system of up, up, down for lists.
Perfect.
Fourth, consciously match your tone to the emotional reality of the situation. And finally, keep your speed firmly under 150 words per minute. Prioritize the luxury car's smoothness over sheer velocity.
It truly is a superpower when you stack all those cognitive and vocal techniques together. You go from surviving a conversation to completely orchestrating it.
You do. And I want to leave you, the listener, with a provocative thought to explore on your own.
Go for it.
The next time you are totally captivated by a phenomenal speaker, maybe it's a famous actor giving an interview, a politician delivering a keynote, or even a podcaster you really admire, close your eyes.
Oh, interesting.
Ignore the actual words they are saying for 60 seconds and just listen strictly to the rise and fall of their pitch. Listen to where they stress their words.
Yeah.
You will suddenly notice they are using these exact fundamental rules of intonation, playing your brain's neurological responses like an instrument to keep you entirely captivated.
I'm absolutely going to do that. It ruins the magic trick a little bit, but it completely reveals the technique behind the illusion. Well, that is all the time we have for today's deep dive. Don't forget to like this video and drop a comment, sharing your thoughts, and subscribe for more.